Tyrone Bowman live. Global news. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another beautiful, cold, wintry night. Here in my makeshift studio, I'm about to cover some news from locally and around the world at the same time. Let me say this as I get started for about the next maybe 40 to 45 minutes here on tonight, maybe hour, I don't know. It all depends what the feeling is like once I get started. Whenever I'm talking about different subject matters and stories, it's from a standpoint that I'm not taking either side when it comes to my reporting. I call it like it is. I would like to have stories that are feel good stories, but oftentimes they don't generate for good viewership. So I have to deal with the hard stuff that everyday people really want to know about. Things that are making a difference locally, nationally, globally, and internationally. So if you like what we're doing here on this channel, kindly subscribe to Tyrone Bowman Live. If you want to show us some love, my information for the Cash App is down there. It's $Piexel number 4. What's happening, Bob? I'll give you a call after I finish this telecast here. I saw your message earlier. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get down to it. You're not going to believe this story coming from the Philadelphia Inquirer in the life section of their newspaper. In an article written by Dugan Arnett, the 4th of February, a couple bought a house on a quiet street. Then they found a swastika in the basement. The discovery prompted a legal battle over what exactly a home seller is required to disclose. Now, let's take a look at this house located in Beaver, Pennsylvania, which became the source of an unusual legal battle after the new owners discovered the images of a swastika in the basement tile. Look at this house right here. Quite beautiful little home, probably in a nice suburban section of Beaver, Pennsylvania. I've been up to Beaver many times in years past, and it's very quiet, quaint, a little too dull for me because they don't really have anything going on after 6 o'clock at night. It's dead to the world up in Beaver. So let's get down to this article. The property listing in Beaver, Pennsylvania, extolled the countless charms of the colonial revival. There was the grand foyer with a handmade railing, the built-in cabinets, and beautiful hardwood floors, and the covered porch offering stunning views of the nearby Ohio River. This house adorns many wonderful features, the listing read, and outstanding details throughout. One detail, however, was notably absent from the listing: the sizable swastika arranged in the permanent tile on the basement floor. That omission has become the source of an unusual legal battle, a disturbing discovery that has weaved its way through the state court system and raised questions, legal and otherwise, about what represents a material defect in a property. I certainly have not seen this particular fact pattern come up before, said Hank Lerner, chief legal officer for the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors. It's a pretty specific one, quote, close quote. When Daniel and Lynn Ray Wentworth closed on the 5-bedroom home in 2023 for around $550,000. It was easy to see the draw. Anchored on a spacious lot just a block from the river, the home was idyllic by just about any measure. But shortly after moving in, the Wentworths were clearing out the basement when they discovered the grim iconographic in tile, a swastika, along with what appeared to the couple to be an image of a Nazi eagle. According to the Wentworths, the tile images had been covered by rugs during the inspection of the home. Wow. Here's another photo here. I'm looking for the actual swastika. Mortified, as they would later say, the Wentworths filed a complaint in Beaver County Civil Court, alleging the previous owner had violated the Pennsylvania real estate seller disclosure law and seeking monetary damages. The Wentworths argue that they would never have bought the home had they known about the tiled floor, nor, they said, could they be expected to live in the home or sell it. Given its condition, in their complaint, the couple estimated it would cost roughly $30,000 to replace the floor. This is just not something you'd ever expect to have to deal with, said Daniel Stoner, an attorney for the Wentworths. They could have actual economic harm from the potential reputational damage if people thought they put it in themselves or were aware of it. The seller, an 85-year-old German immigrant who owned the home for nearly a half century, did not share this view. In response to the Wentworth suit, Albert A. Torrance, an attorney for the seller, argued in a court filing that purely psychological stigmas do not constitute material defects of property, and the seller has no duty to disclose them. Why not? The seller has a duty to disclose everything that's good about the house and that's bad about the house as well. Oftentimes, when individuals are looking for homes, they're so caught up and they're enamored by the fixtures and the fast-talking salesperson or persons, they forget to take the time to do their homework. You want to know the best time to go look for a house? Go on a rainy, thunderous day. You'll find out what's good about it, and you'll find out what's bad about it. What's more, he argued, the Wentworths had failed to identify any untruthful or inaccurate statements he'd made regarding the property. In the interview, Torrance denied that the home's previous owner was a Nazi supporter. 40 years ago, he said the previous owner had been reading a book about the swastika symbol being co-opted by Germany's Nazi party. Angry, he decided to include the symbol in a basement renovation project, placed a rug over it not long after, and forgot about it. You mean to tell me when he moved into that house 40 plus years ago, he wasn't aware of the Nazi swastika in the basement? Well, if you're claiming that you weren't aware of it, why did you cover it up? Why didn't, and if you say that wasn't, your allegiance or you didn't espouse the beliefs, then you should have found out who the previous owner of the house was. And of course, it fits into the narrative a Nazi lived in this house, said Torrance. It's just not the narrative that people want it to be. Regardless, the case raised an interesting question when it comes to property sales. What exactly does rise to the level of a material defect worthy of disclosure? Pennsylvania law requires sellers to disclose a laundry list of potential problems with the home: termites, structural or heating problems, sewage issues, any problem with a residential real property or any portion of it that would have a significant adverse impact on the value of the property or that involves an unreasonable risk to people in the property. Absent from that list, hate symbols that had been permanently embedded. In court filings, the previous owner cited an earlier case that had advanced all the way to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. In 2007, after a California resident purchased a Delaware County home, she learned from a neighbor that the property had been the site of a grisly and highly publicized murder, suicide. The new owner, Janet S. Milliken, sued. In that case, the state Supreme Court ruled that the home's unfortunate history did not represent a material defect, adding that it would be impossible to quantify the psychological impact of various events that might have occurred on a given property. Does a bloodless death by poisoning or overdose create a less significant defect than a bloody one from a stabbing or shooting? The court wrote, how would one treat other violent crimes such as rape, assault, home invasion, or child abuse? What if the killings were elsewhere, but the sadistic serial killer lived there? What if satanic rituals were performed in the house? Leaning heavily upon the Supreme Court's decision in the Milliken case, the Beaver County trial court dismissed the Wentworth's complaint. Unsatisfied with the ruling, the Wentworths appealed. In a decision filed last year, 3 Superior Court judges affirmed the initial ruling that the tiled imagery was not required to be disclosed in accordance with the state's disclosure law. A basement that floods, a roof that leaks, beans that are damaged by termite. These are the conditions our legislature requires sellers to disclose if they are known, the judges wrote in an 18-page ruling filed November 12. We are not dismissive of the Wentworths' outrage, nor their concern that the existence of the image could taint them as Nazi supporters. The decision went on. With this lawsuit, however, they have made a public record to counter any supposition in that regard. Though the couple could have appealed to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, Stoner, their attorney, said this week that they had decided against doing so, citing the low likelihood that the case would have been heard by the court. You know where the couple made the mistake at? They should have taken it to the public. They should have held a press conference. They should have blitzed it all across America. That's how you win a court case. I've only had one case in my entire career they've actually taken up, Stoner said, so the chances of them even getting it heard weren't the greatest. As for the home, Lynn Ray Wentworth told the Pittsburgh Jewish Chronicle recently that she and her husband planned to remove the tiling once they were sure the legal wrangling had concluded. She said they were also considering approaching local legislators in hopes of changing the law, making hate symbol material defects that necessitated disclosure. And she told the publication, I don't want anyone to have to go through this again. Wow. You know, I'm going to say this. There is a house in Philadelphia, I won't say what part, but it used to be owned by a big name, let's just say, mobster. And to this date, they cannot sell that house. And I wonder why. All right, what else is going on around the country? Let's go over to the United Kingdom. Let's see what's going on in the land down under. So the Bank of England is expected to hold interest rates. This is interesting. According to the BBC News or the British Broadcasting Corporation News, interest rates are expected to remain on hold as the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee, or the MPC, meets for the first time this year. The MPC cut the bank rate from 4% to 3.75% in December and suggested rates were likely to continue on a gradual downward path. The bank rate is the primary tool for the committee to try to keep inflation, which charts the annual rate of raising prices at a close to 2% as possible. It heavily influences the interest charged by lenders for loans and mortgages and what banks and building societies give in return to savers. The majority of analysts are predicting the MPC keeps the bank rates on hold at 3.75% when it announces its latest decision at 12 GMT on Thursday. Inflation remains above target at 3.4%, according to the latest data for the year to December. The 9-member committee narrowly voted for a cut in December and gave a fairly cautious view of the situation. Analysts say there has been little data so far this year to change the balance between persistent inflation and weak economic growth. There is also an expectation that the bank will be vague about when or by how much it will cut the bank rate during the year as it awaits a clearer picture on inflation. Some analysts are suggesting one rate cut during 2026, while others believe the MPC could decide on 2 cuts. About a third of households have a mortgage of. Those, about 1 million, have tracker or variable mortgages that tend to change when the bank rate changes. The vast majority of mortgage customers have fixed rate deals, which is good, while their monthly payments are not immediately affected by a rate change. Future deals can be. So what else is happening over here in the land down under? Well, this is not good news. This article was written by Nora Nanji, the cultural and royal correspondent, and Alicia Curry. An email seemingly Ghislaine Maxwell, appears to confirm that a photograph of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor with his arm around Virginia Guthrie, who accused him of sexual abuse, is real. It's not fake news. It's not a witch hunt. It's a real photo. The former prince, who has always denied any wrongdoing, has previously questioned whether the picture had been doctored and claimed he had never met Guthrie. But in a message released as part of the latest batch of the Epstein files, a headed draft statement sent by G. Maxwell to Jeffrey Epstein in 2015, she wrote, quote, "In 2001, I was in London when, of course it's redacted, met a number of friends of mine, including Prince Andrew. A photograph was taken as I imagine she wanted to show it to friends and family," end quote. The family of Guthrie, who died in 2025, told the BBC's Newsnight that the email showed she had been vindicated. You know, they called this now deceased young woman a liar. They maligned her in the press. They tried to eviscerate and assassinate her character to no end. And they said that she had made the whole thing up. And of course, Andrew denied ever being there. This is what they do, ladies and gentlemen. When individuals have certified irrefutable proof of something that they're talking about, you can expect the smear campaign and the onslaught to begin. But if you know you're right and you know your cause is right, stand on that premise and don't give up. So it goes on to say, it does truly vindicate Virginia. She was not lying this entire time, Guthrie's brother, Sky Roberts, said. It's a moment where we're really proud of our sister, he added. The email released by the U.S. Department of Justice adds that G. Maxwell was not aware of anything improper taking place at her home. The name of the person has been redacted from the published version of the statement, but the details indicate that it is Maxwell who was discussing Guthrie. Guthrie, a prominent accuser of Epstein, and Maxwell, alleged mountain-bound Windsor had sex with her 3 times as a teenager. Wow. Excuse me. 3 times as a teenager. He has always denied the claim and reached an out-of-court settlement with Guthrie in 2022. It contained no admission of liability or apology. Let me say this. There's no amount of money, there's no settlement that could necessitate what a person had lived through and experienced. Money does not heal. Money does not erase psychological trauma. Money does not excuse the abuser from the conduct that he or she committed. Since when is it possible for individuals to think that money is what people always want? Some people want justice. Some people want vindication. Some people want the culprit or culprits to be brought to justice. If an ordinary person without name, power, and recognition, status, and nobility had done the same thing, he would have been eviscerated and massacred in the press and thrown into a cesspool of filth in any prison that they could find, and you know it. And it's unfortunate that she had to live her entire life with horror, fear, intimidation from powerful people. You don't get stripped of a title of nobility because you are a saint. The rich and powerful are more privy to things that we are not privy to. Oops, my bad, y'all. I forgot to turn off the, put on the silent part. Give me a moment here. Give me a moment, because I got to get this right. I thought I had it on. My bad. Okay, that should be it. Pardon me, I apologize. I thought I had it on. Well, I do have some new equipment. I just need to learn how to work it. So once I learn how to work my new equipment, I won't be going through all this. You should have been here Sunday because I showed the new equipment that one of our subscribers generously donated to us. We're going to get that studio built. You believe it? So BBC News has approached Mountbatten, Windsor's representative for comment last year. A July 2021 email from Epstein published by Democrats on the U.S. House Oversight Committee also appeared to confirm that the former prince was photographed with Guthrie. The message sent by Epstein, who is alleged to have taken the photo, reads, quote, "Yes, she, meaning Guthrie, was on my plane, and yes, she had her picture taken with Andrew," end quote. In a 2019 interview with Newsnight, Mountbatten Windsor denied meeting Guthrie and suggested that the photograph or elements of it may have been fake. Did you see that interview? He was sweating all over the place. He was jittery. He was nervous. He couldn't look into the camera. He couldn't answer any questions. He said at the time, quote, "Nobody can prove whether or not that photograph has been doctored, but I don't recollect that photograph ever being taken," end quote. In the disastrous interview, he also famously claimed he was not at Maxwell's home, but at a Pizza Express in Woking. Speaking to BBC Newsnight on Wednesday, Guthrie's sister-in-law, Amanda Roberts, said, though through tears, that the release of documents from the so-called Epstein files has been a whirlwind. "I felt like a moment of such overwhelming emotion because I wish she was here to see this. She fought so hard and so long, and she was still so strong." Quote, end quote. Whew. May her soul rest in peace, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's go to another article from the BBC News. This time, United States probes Nike over white workers' discrimination claims. Here we go again. Here we go again. Nike is under investigation by the U.S. government over claims that the footwear giant discriminated against white workers. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which enforces workplace discrimination laws, announced on Wednesday it has demanded company records going back to 2018, including the use of race and ethnicity data and whether such information influenced executive pay. Court documents show it is examining claims the firm engaged, quote, in a pattern or practice of disparate treatment against white employees, applicants, and training program participants, end quote. Listen to me, let me be very clear on this. White people have never been discriminated against in any workplace, not in America or around the world. I'll tell you who have been discriminated: women. Women have been discriminated against, black and white. Demoralized, dehumanized, questioned their intelligence. All of a sudden, white people are complaining about being discriminated against in the Nike Corporation. I don't think Nike is going down without a fight. Court documents show, I read that, Nike said it was, quote, committed to fair and lawful employee practices, calling the inquiry a surprising and unusual escalation, end quote. In a statement, the company said it followed all laws against discrimination. "We believe our programs and practices are consistent with those obligations and take these matters seriously. We will continue our attempt to cooperate with the EEOC and will respond to the petition." The decision to go to battle with Nike, a high-profile consumer brand, is one of the first major actions the EEOC has taken under U.S. President Donald Trump, who has attacked diversity initiatives, saying they amount to reverse discrimination. There is no such thing as reverse discrimination. None. I, as a black man in America, have been discriminated against all my life, but I don't go around raising hell about it. I don't go around crying the blues, trying to sue anybody. The one thing I've used is my mind, because I know I'm just as good as anybody on YouTube today. I know for a certified fact that what I'm doing is real. And whether people believe it or not, whether they accept it or not, whether they criticize or condemn me or not, that doesn't take anything away from me. Believe in yourself, believe in the gifts and the talent and abilities you have within you. And if they don't want you to work in their corporation, the hell with them, move on, create your own job. How about that? Now, that'll solve that problem. The EEO said its investigation was sparked by a 2024 complaint from America First Legal. Now, listen to this. America First Legal, a partisan organization founded by Trump advisor Stephen Miller. You know who Stephen Miller is? Stephen Miller is one of the architects behind Project 2025. Stephen Miller is the individual who's spearheading all the chaos, pandemonium, and confusion that's going on in the nation today, that identifies dismantling diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, as a top priority. How are you going to tell corporations how to run their corporations? How are you going to try to tell somebody else what to do with their products? What about the housing discrimination laws that were used against Black people for such a long time in America? And rich white men got even richer because of it, and they took advantage of the government entitlements and became billionaires and now scream racism. Just think, ladies and gentlemen, we have to use our minds. I don't believe anything that comes out of the mouth of Stephen Miller, nothing. That's why it's called America First Legal. In other words, it is a code word for white people first. MAGA first. Racism first. They're not going to win this battle against Nike. In its subpoena request, the EEOC said Nike had failed to fully respond to requests seeking information about the firm's hiring, training, and promotion practices, as well as hiring goals for racial and ethnic minorities. See, you had to know that Black people somewhere, somehow fit in the equation here. It's not about white racism. This is about having a lot of Black people working for Nike, and they're upset about it, and they want the Black people fired, and they want the white people to replace them. That's what this is about. Like Black people don't have the right to work where they're qualified to work. Some of the greatest intuitive geniuses that have ever been produced in America have been Black people and other minorities as well. And the reason why some of the so-called great so-called geniuses in the world are credited with so many things, because they stole everybody else's innovative intellectual property and ideas and their inventions. Oh, yes, they did. They stole their work and claimed it as their own. I mean, since this is Black History Month, we might as well just put it all out in the atmosphere. So those requests started 13 months ago and included a prior subpoena. According to the court filing, Nike's failure to comply has delayed and hampered the EEOC's investigation of alleged unlawful employee practices, court documents. Well, I think I'm going to start a company of my own, nonpartisan organization. How about that? Not going to tell you the name of it, but I'm going to start one. And those who oppose any minority, we will oppose them at the election polls. I don't care if they're Black minority, white minority. I don't care what color they are, what creed, what faith, what religion, what sexuality they are. People have got to have a voice. And if you think you're helpless, then you are. If you think you're defeated, you are. If you think you can't come up against a conglomerate because people have a whole lot of money, then you'll never win a battle. I won a major lawsuit from a prison cell because I understood the law and studied it. I sued one of my attorneys who took my money and didn't do the job. And he laughed and said, good look. So I sued his ass and got paid in full from a prison cell. Don't tell me you can't use your mind in prison. Yeah, I said it. I sued his ass and I got paid in full. They sent me the check for a large amount of money in full. You can't take people's money, lawyers, and you don't supply your notice of entry and do the job that you were hired for and think that because they're locked up in prison that they don't have a mind, that they can't think, and that they can't sue your behinds. Yes, we can. We can sue you and we can win. It is argued that the investigation should be dropped because the company is being questioned about diversity policies that the federal agency previously supported. The EEOC was created as part of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So they want to use the 1964 Civil Rights Act for white people, but they don't want to use it for black people. And the 1964 Civil Rights Act came about because of racial bias, racial discrimination in education, in the workplace, in jobs, and in housing. It's okay to use it for them, but you can't use it for what is right. The White House has sought to redirect the commission away from its historic focus on bias affecting minority groups and women. Some of the crap that goes on in this world, this is the reason why I make it my business to cover such a variety of topics on this channel, because I want people to be well informed. You know, I realize that everybody doesn't have the time to do all the type of research that I do because individuals are working, they're trying to take care of their families. They got so much on their plates. Coming from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Pennsylvania officials push back as Trump targets Philly in call to nationalize elections ahead of 2020 midterms. The federal government should get involved, Trump said, as he continues to push false claims about his loss in the 2020 election. This article was written by Katie Bernard and Rob Tournon. I'm going to be taking a break in about 10 minutes, and then I will be back. Pennsylvania Secretary of State Al Schmidt on Wednesday rejected President Donald Trump's false claims about voter fraud in the state as Trump targeted Philadelphia in his push to nationalize elections. The state's top election officials said Trump's proposal would violate the Constitution, which he noted clearly gives states exclusive authority to administer elections. Pennsylvania and Philadelphia are top battlegrounds going into the midterm elections. It is a pivotal place. Pennsylvania elections have been more safe and secure, said Schmidt, who served as Philadelphia Republican City Commissioner in 2020 when the city was at the center of Trump's conspiracy theories. Thousands of election officials, Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike across the Commonwealth's 67 counties will continue to ensure we have fair, free, safe, and secure elections for the people of Pennsylvania, he said in a statement. What are they afraid of? If you're going to run honestly in the midterm elections, win, lose, or draw, have the elections. I'll tell you who did rig the election in another video. Now listen, speaking to reporters Tuesday in the Oval Office, Trump cited Philadelphia, Detroit, and Atlanta as examples of where the federal government should run elections. He signaled out three predominantly black cities in swing states, but offered no evidence of voter fraud nor corruption to support his claims of a rigged election. Take a look at Detroit, take a look at Pennsylvania, take a look at Philadelphia. You go take a look at Atlanta, Trump said. The federal government should get involved. 2.5 million black people voted for Trump. So why didn't they claim fraud then? 2.5 million black people voted for Trump in this past election. We didn't hear anything about fraud coming out of Philadelphia then. He even thanked them for voting for him. How come, are you trying to tell me that corruption doesn't go on in Republican states? That they have fair, free, and open elections? That Republicans are ethical? The Republicans are godly, the Republicans are righteous, and the Democrats are demons and heathens? Is that what you're trying to advocate? That the only good thing about America is the Republican Party? Please. Philadelphia has been a frequent target of Trump's false claims of election fraud for several years, going back to his efforts to overturn his loss in the 2020 election. City and state officials have persistently pushed back on those claims, and there is no evidence that the election in the city have been anything but free and fair. Trump is advocating for taking control of elections in 15 states, though his administration has not mentioned which ones. Well, of course, they're all Democratic states. I said they're all Democratic states. The Republicans should say, quote, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. But Pennsylvania officials and experts noted he lacks the power to do so unilaterally. Congress has limited power to set rules for elections, but the U.S. Constitution permits control of elections in the states. Tyrone Bowman, Live, Global News. I'll be right back right after this. We're back, Tyrone Bowman, Live Global News. Thank you all for being patient with me. I had to take a break here. I'm talking about this story in the Philadelphia Inquirer, and it's talking about how the this particular story is about Pennsylvania officials pushing back as President Trump targets Philly in a call to nationalize the elections as we head into the 2026 midterm elections. It's going to be contentious. It's going to be hot. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard-fought election cycle because people want change. People want change and they're demanding change and they're not going to stop, and they get it. So here's where we are with this article. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claimed to reporters early Tuesday the president was referring to the SAVE Act, legislation proposed by House Republicans requires citizens to show documents like a passport or driver's license to register to vote. Look, let's get serious here. We've been showing documentation ever since we've been voting. There's never been a time when I didn't vote and didn't show documentation. This is nothing new. This is nothing more than a ruse and to attempt to arouse divisiveness, disillusionment, and conspiracy. They have no substantiated facts or claims to justify nationalizing elections. You can't even vote unless you show authorization that you are an American citizen. I don't know any black person that I've been around since I was a child growing up in Philadelphia that didn't have to pull out a document to prove who they were in order to vote. And I've been voting since I was 18. I don't like some of the candidates that are running. That's why I haven't voted in a while, because I can't stand politicians half the time, because they're all one and the same. The Democrats, the Republicans, all are alike in so many different ways. Sometimes it comes down to who can be the most convincing liar. Because once they get in office, none of them ever do what they say they're going to do for the constituency. So President Trump will face an uphill in nationalizing elections, even as some Republicans in Congress are already pushing back. Senator Majority Leader John Thune, Republican from South Dakota, told reporters Tuesday he disagreed with Trump on any attempt to nationalize elections, calling it a constitutional issue. I'm not in favor of federalizing elections. Still, Trump's comments raised alarm as his administration continues to sow doubt in the nation's elections. This is clearly a case of Trump trying to push the boundaries of federal involvement in election administration because he has a problem with any checks on his power, democracy being one of them, said Montgomery County Commissioner Neil Mahija, an attorney and a Democrat who chairs the Montgomery County Board of Elections. Trump's comments came a week after the FBI seized ballots and voting records from the 2020 election from the Fulton County Election Hub in Georgia. In a statement, Fulton County Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr. said the county will file a motion in the Northern District of Georgia challenging the legality of the warrant and the seizure of sensitive election records and force the government to return the ballots taken. You can believe they've already copied all that stuff, bruh. All this stuff has already been copied. Leslie Dealey, a Democratic member of the Philadelphia City Commissioners, who oversee elections, accused Trump of trying to distract from federal agents killing 2 civilians in Minnesota last month. This is nothing more than an old-fashioned playbook in an attempt to try to discourage people from voting. This is nothing more than an attempt to try to discourage people from coming out to vote in November. Ladies and gentlemen, mark my word on this one. Untold millions of people are coming out in the midterm elections. And Republicans are going to vote for change. Because they're furious, they're upset. Why are they upset? Because the economy is tilting on the brink of bankruptcy. Look at the farms down in the South. The agriculture industry is shot. Look at the jobs report hasn't even been released because it's so dismal until the labor industry won't release the jobs report statistics. You know how many people are unemployed? You know how many people are working what they consider to be menial jobs just in order to make it? Food prices are still up. Gas is still up. Of course, the wealthy and the privileged, they'll say, well, there's nothing wrong with America. America's wonderful for us. We still have our yachts, our mansions, our billions and hundreds of millions of dollars, our slaves, pardon me, our servants, our employees, our stocks and bonds, and the stock portfolio is up, the dividends are up, the shareholders are pleased. Everybody's making money. We're getting great tax breaks. This is how they think. At the expense of who? At the expense of everyday people. Do you know why America came into being? Study your history. The inception of America came as a result of a tyrannical king. It was a bloody revolutionary war that established the original 13 colonies. Now, if history, in fact, is wrong, then that is wrong. You can't have one aspect of history and then don't record all of history. Whatever America's history is, ladies and gentlemen, for good, bad, or worse, it is history. Doesn't mean that it's going to continue to remain prevalent as it was then. We learn and we grow and we expand. That's why people got to learn to sit down and listen and talk to one another. Dialogue, the art of discussion. I used to watch a program called The Art of Dialogue. It's a very powerful practice that went on. There's no civility. You look at Fox. There's no civility over there. CNN is totally compromised. MSNBC up and down, waffling. Real decent, credible journalists, they leave and they become independent journalists because they're stifled and strangled by corporate America. You couldn't pay me to work for any of those networks. I wouldn't even accept it. Straight up. I'd turn it down. The answer would be no. I would not be the token Negro, the token black person sitting on the panel and you throw a question to me when it comes to black people. I'd cuss all y'all out, open on the air. You wouldn't like it because you wouldn't be able to go to commercial. I'd lay y'all out. I wouldn't even play with you because I'm not that boy. I was raised in the hood. So, we're going to get down to business in the midterm elections. Turn out to vote. Now, coming from the Associated Press, Argentina is requesting extradition of Maduro from the U.S. on crimes against humanity charges. Well, that's not going to happen. This is coming from Buenos Aires, Argentina, via the Associated Press. This was written by Sergio Farella. An Argentine judge on Wednesday requested the extradition from the United States of former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who was captured by the U.S. military last month and now faces federal charges over narco-terrorism and conspiracy to import cocaine in New York. The inquest from Argentina, whose judges have aggressively pursued human rights abuse cases beyond its border, accuses Maduro of having committed crimes against humanity and overseeing a harsh crackdown on protesters and political opponents as president. Quote, the urgent transition of the international requests and the documentation attached thereto is hereby ordered, said the warrant, which was signed by the Argentine federal judge Sebastian Ramos and seen by the Associated Press. Plaintiffs include Venezuelans who suffered torture, arbitrary detention, and enforced disappearance, among other abuses at the hands of Venezuelan security forces and intelligence agents. The case filed in Buenos Aires in 2023 by human rights organizations representing the victims relies on the principle of universal jurisdiction, a legal concept that allows for the prosecution in Argentina of anyone from any country who commits crimes like genocide or terrorism anywhere in the world. Argentina's foreign ministry must now present the request to the Trump administration, which is unlikely to comply, as Maduro and his wife, Cecilia Flores, await trial in a Brooklyn jail on charges that they worked with drug cartels to facilitate the shipment of thousands of tons of cocaine into the U.S. over a 25-year period. Maduro is not going anywhere. He's going to be tried, convicted, and sentenced. That's how it's going to end. I don't even need to read any more of that from the Associated Press because it's not going to happen. According to ESPN, I'm not going to read that one. So what else do we have going on here? Okay, this is coming from NBC News. I think this is a propaganda piece. Julia Ainley. Greg Rubino was frustrated by directive to conduct targeted operations in Chicago. The former commander-at-large of Border Patrol, Gregory Bovino, clashed with other administration officials over immigration enforcement tactics months before fatal shootings in Minneapolis. I don't believe a word of it. Months before two fatal shootings in Minneapolis by Border Patrol agents, Gregory Bovino, who until last week was overseeing the agency's immigration enforcement operations, pushed back against internal efforts to temper his aggressive approach, according to an email that was obtained by NBC News. Bovino wanted to conduct large-scale immigration sweeps during an operation in Chicago in September, but the acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Todd Lyons, told him the focus was to conduct targeted operations, arresting only of people known to federal agents ahead of time for their violations of immigration law or other laws, according to the correspondence. Mr. Lyons seemed intent that the CBP conducted targeted operations for at least 2 weeks before transitioning to full-scale immigration enforcement, Bovino wrote in an email to Department of Homeland Security leaders in Washington, referring to Customs and Border Protection, which oversees Border Patrol agents. I declined the suggestion. We ended the conversation shortly thereafter. Yet after 10 days of more targeted enforcement in Chicago, DHS leadership gave Bovino permission to use his more aggressive approach, and Border Patrol agents he oversaw began to stop people that they believe were in the U.S. illegally, according to a person familiar with the conversation between Bovino and Lyons. Operation Midway Blitz grew to include roughly 1,600 arrests. The operation sparked clashes with demonstrators and protests throughout the Chicago area. Immigration officers shot 2 people. Oh, well. Coming from Reuters News Agency, the Fed Governor Moran quits White House job. This is an article written by Trevor Honeycutt, Andrea Shalalo. Here's a summary. Moran is on unpaid leave from his CEA post since Fed appointment. A promised Senate would depart counsel if Fed tension prompted. So Federal Reserve Governor Stephen Moran resigned on Tuesday from his position as chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisors, fulfilling the pledge to make to the Senate as his assignment at the central bank becomes longer lasting. Moran had been on unpaid leave from his CEA post since President Donald Trump appointed him last year to fill an unexpected vacancy on the Fed's Board of Governors to a term that expired January 31. The arrangement drew the ire of Democratic senators who said it would make a presidential puppet of the Fed's policy maker. Moran said he had been legally advised there was no need to quit his CEA post, as the Fed job was only for a few months. I promised the Senate that I should stay on the board on the board past January, I would formally depart the council. Moran said his resignation letter dated Tuesday and reviewed by Reuters. I believe it is important to stay true to my word. I continue to perform the job at the Federal Reserve to which you and the Senate appointed me. You know, ladies and gentlemen, these are all billionaires. You all want to hear a story about Kyle Rittenhouse? Sometimes I don't think this young man knows what he's doing. According to The Hill, this article was written by Ashley Fields. Kyle Rittenhouse on Tuesday called for U.S. Attorney for D.C. Janine Pereiro to be fired after threatening to jail anyone who brings a gun into the district. Pereiro should be fired. There is no reason a U.S. attorney should take such a blatantly unconstitutional stance, he wrote in a post on X. During a Monday appearance on Fox News, Pereiro said she was cracking down on illegal gun possession in the nation's capital. I don't care if you have a license in another district, and I don't care if you're a law-abiding gun owner somewhere else, Pereiro said on Fox News. You bring a gun into this district, count on going to jail. Pereiro has touted her office's statistics on illegal gun arrests and stolen weapon recovery in recent months. Her comments sparked backlash from gun owners and advocates. When you come up against the NRA, they ain't having it. The National Association for Gun Rights called Pereiro's assertion unacceptable and intolerable, suggesting it shows how broken and out of touch local gun laws are. Local news in D.C. require gun owners to register any firearms with police, and permits from other jurisdictions are not recognized. The nation's capital also bars the registration of assault rifles and similar weapons, effectively banning them. Rittenhouse later chimed in on pushback from people who defended Pearl's remarks by posting a full clip of her interview with the caption, in full context, everything she says was entirely wrong and retarded. Well, what else would you expect coming from a 20-something-year-old? All right, hopefully on tomorrow's show, I will have an update on the hearing. Well, I won't put it up to you. I'll just do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to conclude this broadcast for tonight. And thank you all for watching. Thank you all for subscribing to the channel. Never surrender. Never quit.